Good evening, everyone. My word, that's bright. My word. So I've only just learned what solo means, as have half the people around the table that are doing presentations this evening. So that's a little bit enlightening, to say the least. So, CV, that's not a bad place to start, is it? So you can understand kind of where the story began. You can read that first date. Seems a very, very long time ago, so you can do the maths. It was a very, very long time ago. Disruptive child. My parents thought I was a very disruptive child. Beyond belief, actually. I'm blessed to have 2 children and grandchildren that are proving to be exactly the same. I was a child of a forces family, so we traveled the world. My father was in the military. And I think that taught me a lot of things about life. Changing schools every 2 years, integrating with different people, becoming very resilient as a result, because I think those were some things I had to learn fast. And in those days, if you didn't learn, you got it beaten out of you, literally. It was a tough schooling. 1976. Before that, I was a pretty fat kid. Still not as slim as I'd like to be, but in those days, particularly large. And I liked golf, and I liked cricket. So I worked really, really hard at those 2 things because I wanted to make a living as a professional sportsman. I thought that seemed like a great idea. So then, kind of getting to that age, 16, 17, I was a scratch golfer at 16. So I wanted to make a living playing golf. And I also played second 11 cricket in the UK for Leicestershire. So in the winters, I played golf, and in the summers, I played cricket, which was great, but didn't make any money, sadly. And I just wasn't good enough, which is a sad failure. So there's lots of failing in this as well as succeeding. And I think it's a strong lesson for life, actually. So I tried professional sport. I was in Portugal teaching people how to play golf and trying to win some money, but it never worked out. I had to accept that I was not going to have a career as a sportsman, which was hard, because my brother-in-law went on to have a very successful cricket career, played for Warwickshire for 20 years, played for England, and made me feel really, really bad. So after being a failed sportsman, I came back to the UK. The idea was to go to university, get my qualifications, because everyone said I would need a degree. I had a friend that I went to school with. His father owned a company called MC Sports and Leisure. He had 15 shops, and he was based in Leicester, which is where my family were from. And then there was another company called John David Sports in Manchester. So I got offered a job by both companies. I chose MC Sports and Leisure, my friend's dad. JD Sports is John David Sports. I made a mistake here. I think I could have had a much bigger career if I'd joined John David Sports, and obviously you're all familiar with John David Sports now coming to the region here. Now that job, I was earning £9,500 a year, and in those days, trust me, I thought I'd made it. I thought that was really good. But I looked around the retail industry and I thought, okay, if I'm going to make a profession out of this, I need to work for a progressive, exciting, driven, amazing business that is going to teach me things. So at the time, there was a gentleman called George Davis in the UK. Many of you will be familiar with him. George was setting up Next Retail. So I chose to go and work for George, and it came out of a business called Hepworth's Menswear in the UK, and it was converting to Next. And Next was a premium business in those days, selling suits, for example, at £300. I challenge anybody to go into Next these days and find a suit for £300. It's a completely different business now to what it was in those days. So I took a pay cut from my £9,500 to earn £7,775. It stuck in my brain in that job as a floor manager in one of the stores in Nottingham, actually. And then, interestingly, that company was expanding so fast, we were converting and opening 20 and 30 stores a month. I never had the same job for longer than 6 months. I got promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted. I was the youngest area manager at 20 years and 8 months. And the training that I had was a walk into the car park, they gave me the car keys to the car and said, off you go. No mobile phones, no technology, zero. I had 24 stores in my first field job. I was controlling 35 million of turnover, and the only way to get a message around my region to get the gen across of what was required was to phone every single store manager, know them by name, know the phone number I had to phone out of my head, didn't write it down, you just knew it. It was conditional, you had to do those things to succeed. So, next big mistake. Next, expanded and expanded and expanded. They put me on a development program, so I was very fortunate to work in all the various sectors of the business, whether it be finance, audit, buying, merchandising. I worked in every single function, which was great. So I learned a lot. My grounding came from here. It got to 1991, February 1991, the 14th, Valentine's Day. The share price for Next hit 6 pence. 6 pence. I thought, this business isn't going to last. If you check the market cap today, it's 12 billion. I had shares in 1991. If I'd stayed there, I'd be 30 million pounds wealthy. If I'd stayed. I left. So that was a bit of a mistake. Not a good move on my part whatsoever. I moved to River Island because I thought they were the next progressive business. They look quite similar to Next, doing exciting things. There's certain people in this room that I think have worked for River Island as well. A great business, but completely different to the one that I'd come from. And it wasn't for me, actually, as a total business, but I worked there for a number of years. I left there and worked for Matalan, which was an out-of-town retailer in the UK. It's now here in the market, but again in a different format. Privately owned, family-owned business. Entrepreneurial driven, great vision. And I grew with that business, and I had a boss who used to make my life hell, a guy called Angus Munro, who I'm seeing next week. And the thing that I always remember about my life here is that he never, ever, ever gave me a hard time when things were tough. Never. What he did do, however, was beat me to death when things were good. He said, do better. You're good. The business is good. Do better. It stuck with me a lot. We floated the business, and then there was a big management change orchestrated by the then owners. So I decided to go and work at the Peacock Group. I should say, actually, at Matalan, I got my first main board directorship. I was 34. And the only thing I've got on Angus is that he got his first main board directorship at 36. So I thought that was a tick. That was a bit of payback, because I managed to do it a little bit earlier than him. Going to the Peacock Group, it was a diverse business. We had multiple brands. So I ran one of their divisions, which was targeted at older ladies, which I've always remembered, because the business was rescued by a whole CRM program. The business was failing, losing about 16 million a year, and then we introduced a CRM program. It revolutionized the loyalty of that business. And within 2 years, the business was making 23 million. So that was a real success story.
I just was told to take it in a sportive manner and remind you that we're basically
out of time. Okay, over time. I'll move on to the very end. Factors of influence: luck, people, hard work. All those three things were major factors. And there's just some key comments that were given to me over time. Retailing is simple, so keep it simple. Give customers what they want, when they want it, at a price they're prepared to pay. It's no more complicated than that. Product, people, place, define a brand, work on them all. I think that's fair. I was always told the world is average. Don't be average. Feedback is the breakfast of champions, good and bad. And then one of my key statements is about being unreasonable in the pursuit of excellence. I think it's a mantra that stands well for everybody. And then finally, historical CEOs that have said things to me of meaning. First one, get your strategy right and be prepared to fail, but make sure everyone understands the strategy from the top to the bottom of your organization. I don't think people often take enough time to talk to the lowest common denominator, so to speak, in the business and make sure they understand what the strategy is. Secondly is employ talented people better than you. I think that's always a good thing. Third, get the right real estate and distribution channels. Finally, never let a finance guy run a creative business. Sorry to the finance guys in the room. And the final one, Don't be an idiot. I'm still working that one out. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.